Okay, so the first thing is, recently we've added a bunch of new film emulations to Snapseed. And so you can see these little banners popping up that tell you what these like film emulations were inspired by. And these are just some of my favorite film stocks of all time. We also have a bunch more in here that don't really have descriptive names, and you kind of just need to click through to select to see kind of what they do. Now, so you can go through and you can pick a starting film. So I'm going to go with this one here, Kodak E200, or the film inspired by Kodak E200. And then there's a number of parameters you can adjust to really make this your own. So the first is the style strength. So this is going to change how much of the colors are being adjusted in the image to emulate that film. So sort of how strong you want the effect to be. We default it to 80 every time. So anytime you open a film, at first it'll be set to 80, and then whatever your selection is will carry over. So I'm gonna turn it up to 100 because I like the full look. And then the next thing is grain. Now we recently changed how grain works in Snapseed to give you way more options to customize what style of grain you want. Because as you may or may not know, no single film grain is the same, right? They're all, the way the light interacts with them, even from roll to roll, you can get slight differences. So one thing you can do is you can just turn up the amount of grain. So if I look in here, you can see that like way more grain is being added. Now I do think this is a place where you want to exercise some subtlety, so not to overdo it here, but it is to personal preference. And then the other things you can do is you can change the grain size. So again, I'll zoom in to kind of show this. So you can kind of see that the sort of size of the dots there is really changing. And again, that's all to like sort of what you're trying to emulate and what your personal style is. And then you can also change the grain texture. And this is one where really you just got to see it rather than me trying to describe it. But you can kind of see like, yeah, the roughness of the grain changing there. And then the other thing that is not necessarily like true to historical grain, but is how we kind of perceive it, is this idea of grain blur, which is that a lot of times by adding a little bit of blur to your image, it makes it feel more sort of representative of what grain looks and feels like. And so now if we go and look at the change, here was our before and here is our after. And to me, that feels like far more of that sort of like analog vintage aesthetic that I really like in my photography. That's the film tool. I hope you try it and like it.